Today I'm going to be sharing a list of my favorite survival thriller books. The survival theme in thrillers is one of my favorite themes to explore. I'm not exactly quite sure why I like it so much, but I really find it very gripping. I like when the stakes are very high and someone is fighting for their lives or in a dangerous situation or running away from the cops, and it just feels very tense and you feel very connected to the characters and very along with them on this journey of wondering if they're going to make it out with their lives. So today I've compiled a list of some of my favorites that I'll be sharing with you. The first stack I'm going to go over are survival thriller books that have a little bit more to them. There's also a mystery going on, or it just is a little bit more developed. And then the second stack of books I'm going to be sharing is purely survival thrillers where the plot is basically just, can these characters survive? Because I feel like I've heard a lot of people say they don't like survival thrillers because they find them very repetitive, especially when their characters are finding themselves just in a dangerous situation trying to get out of it. So I'm going to save those for the back half of the stack. So these first recommendations, I think even if you typically don't like survival thrillers, you might enjoy these. First up is I Will Find You by Harlan Coben. To this day, this is still the only Harlan Coben I've read, but I definitely do want to read more from him. This is one of those survival thrillers that has a little bit more to it, a mystery going on. So in the story, you're following this guy who has been convicted for the murder of his own 3-year-old son. One night he was watching his son, he fell asleep, he woke up and his son was dead, and he ended up getting convicted for the murder, although he has always claimed that he did not do it. It is now 5 years later and he has been in prison all that time, still feeling like he has been wrongfully convicted. And then one of his family members comes to him in prison and shows that they have this photograph where they have spotted this boy that appears to be his son, aged up 5 years. So that opens the question of, was his son actually murdered, or was this all staged to put him in prison, and is his son somewhere alive today? So the father then sets off on this journey where he decides to break out of prison and to go try to find out what happened and clear his own name and see if his son is possibly still alive. This was so tense, so high stakes. I was so invested in this character's story, and it also just has such an interesting mystery at the heart of it because you are wondering, did he kill his son? Did someone else kill his son? Or did someone else make it look like they killed his son, but really he's alive somewhere else? Speaking of fathers, my next recommendation is These Silent Woods by Kimmy Cunningham Grant. This is more of a literary survival thriller that is following this guy named Cooper and his daughter who have been living remote in the middle of the woods for the past 8 years, and they have no contact with the outside world except for one friend who visits them every winter to come deliver supplies and some food to get them through the year. But then one year the friend does not show up with supplies, and so that puts them in a precarious situation where they may have to go out and interact with the world. This book also poses a mystery at its center because you're wondering, why is this father keeping his daughter so isolated from the rest of the world? Is he trying to keep her safe from something, or is he running away from something? And you're also wondering what happened to the friend and why he didn't show up to deliver his supplies like he normally does. This one was super atmospheric and it had very real feeling characters. It's a story of sacrifice and survival. Next is The Drift by CJ Tudor. I'm a big fan of CJ Tudor's works, and this one is a survival story that is told in a post-apocalyptic landscape. You're following 3 different characters in 3 different situations, all on their own journey of survival. What I really liked about this book is the mystery of how it's all going to be connected and understanding the greater landscape of what is going on in this post-apocalyptic world and how it's all going to unfold. For one character, they're trapped in a bus after an accident with a bunch of other survivors. For one, she's trapped on a ski lift, and for another, he's trapped in a ski chalet with some other survivors, and their generator is going out, potentially causing them security issues. Each situation feels so high stakes, so you're very immersed in that survival element of each character's individual story, but also understanding the people who are around them, if they're safe with those people, what's going on in the broader world, and how is any of this connected? Why are we following these 3 people's stories, and how is it all going to come together at the end? And last in this section is The Writing Retreat by Julia Bartz. This is a wackadoodle book. It is a little ridiculous and silly, but I absolutely loved it. In this story, you're following a group of authors who are getting the opportunity to do this once-in-a-lifetime retreat where they're going to be able to stay with this really famous reclusive author. It's a month-long writing retreat. They think they're just going there to work on their books, but when they get there, they realize the stakes are even higher than they thought because the author is making it sort of a contest that whoever finishes their novel and makes the best novel is going to win a publishing deal at the end of this. The main character you're following is also going through her own personal situation during this time because her ex-best friend is along for this trip as well, so that creates some tension between the characters. And then there's a lot of weird things that start to happen while they're on this retreat. The famous author has some strange behaviors, there are some strange things going on at the house, and then someone goes missing. There's a lot to unpack in this one, a lot going on, but at the heart of it, it does become a survival story, and like I said, it's a silly one, but I had a lot of fun with it. Moving on into the next stack, these are books that are a little bit more just survival at the plot of the story. There's not as much other stuff going on. And since I just ended with a silly one, I'm gonna start with a silly one, and that is The Venue by TJ Payne. This book is just pure survival, and it is over the top, and it is silly, but I had so much fun with it. In this story, you're following your main character, Amy, who is getting invited to her former friend's wedding, who she has not seen in a very long time, and it is a very luxurious event, a lot of rich people. She doesn't really know why she's getting invited, but she's taking up the opportunity, and then things go wrong. You can see the blood on the cover. This one is more of a mix with horror as well. It is more gory, so warning for that, but it is a very fun time. Next up is The Last Word by Taylor Adams. This one could have kind of gone in the other stack as well because there's a little bit more going on to this, a little bit of mystery around it, but mostly I think it falls better into this category. In this story, you're following a woman named Emma who has been staying at this vacation house by herself. She has been going through a hard time in life, so she's just trying to hang out, read some books, and decompress with her dog. And then she ends up reading this book that sucks, so she gives it a 1-star review, and then the author gets very mad, and she gets into an online altercation with the author, and then she finds that she's being attacked in real life, and she has to try to survive that altercation. So there is some mystery in this, including another character who's involved in the story, who's in that area that she has had some communication with, and then also trying to unpack, is this the author coming after her and why, and is there something greater potentially going on here? But for the most part, this is a ridiculous, silly, over-the-top survival thriller. And if you enjoy this one and you haven't yet read No Exit from this author as well, that is also a survival thriller. That is one of my favorite thrillers, and it's following a woman who gets stuck at a rest stop at night with a couple other people and then has to fight for her life. Highly recommend both of them. Next up is Falling by TJ Newman. This is a survival story told on an airplane. So if you have a fear of flights, if you've got a flight coming up, or if you're looking for a book to take on your plane, probably not the one for you. But if you are comfortable exploring that, this is a story where a pilot is flying this really long flight. They have hundreds of guests on board, and then they receive a threatening note that their family has been kidnapped, so they are left with the option to crash the plane to save their family, or their family is going to be murdered if they refuse to go through with it. So in this situation, the pilot is faced with a very difficult choice and trying to figure out a way to navigate the situation by saving everyone if possible. This was super tense, super high stakes. This book made me physically anxious while reading it. It very much stressed me out. And if you enjoyed this one, this author also has another book that is a survival thriller that is called Drowning. In that book, a plane has crashed into the water and they're trying to rescue the plane before the people lose oxygen. I personally did not enjoy that one quite as much because this one had a little bit more of a psychological mystery element to it as well, whereas Drowning was purely just survival. So depending on which way you lean, maybe you'll enjoy one more than the other. Next up is The Island by Adrienne McKinty. I absolutely love this one. It is set on an island where a family is taking a little vacation. The plot of this one is pretty much the family goes to the island, they get trapped on the island, and they're trying to fight for their life. I personally felt really invested in the characters in this one, and I was very much rooting for them, and it was also just nice to see the family's relationships deepen throughout the story because the woman is actually a stepmother or a girlfriend of the dad, and the kids don't have the best relationship with her before going into this experience, but then this really becomes a bonding activity. So I got really invested in the family dynamic situation of what was going on in this story as well, but for the most part, it is brutal survival in a harsh landscape with some dangerous circumstances around them, and I was very invested and found it super fast-paced and exciting. And lastly is One Perfect Couple by Ruth Ware. This is Ruth Ware's latest novel, and in this story it's following several couples who are going to film this reality competition television show out on this island, but then a storm happens, they get stuck on the island, and it becomes a situation where they're fighting for their life and also questioning if they can trust one another and if any of them are potentially posing an additional threat to their lives. books. I really like survival situations like this as well, where it's following a group of people and you don't know who you can trust along the way, and if they're also potentially going to like come after you and kill you in a situation that you're already probably going to die anyway because you're stranded on an island and you have limited resources, and then you also have this added complicated factor of another person who could be a threat. I really enjoyed that. I had a great time with it. I thought it was a fun summer thriller. Ruth Ware also has another survival thriller called One by One, and that one is more of a wintry book. I did not personally enjoy that one as much. I gave that one 3 stars, whereas I gave One Perfect Couple 5 stars. But if you're looking to explore more from Ruth Ware and specifically more survival thrillers, that is also an option. So that is it for my list of my favorite survival thriller book recommendations. Let me know down below if you have any additional recommendations for myself or for anyone in the comments. I'm always looking to find more survival thrillers because I do think it is probably my favorite subgenre of thrillers. So let me know if there's any I should check out down below. But that is it for me. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all in my next video. Bye!